welcome back to Moving to New Zealand. Today I have a guest, Jonathan. Do you prefer Jonathan?
Jonathan's great. Yeah.
Yeah. And we have not met before, so this is our first time really speaking. So you guys, as listeners, can learn about his journey to New Zealand while I'm also learning about it, which is always exciting because then you get my natural curiosity as a listener. So one of the first question I'll ask is, when did you move here?
So I moved here in 2018 and at the time I didn't think I was moving here, but I came to attend a training as a participant and yeah, one thing led to the next and
Yeah.
I ended
Okay.
up living here. But anyway, 2018. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you've been here a while. And
Mm.
what state in America did you move from?
I was living in the last place I was in the States was Chicago, Illinois. Yeah.
Okay.
So I was living there for a couple of years before I came here, and then San Francisco before that, Boston before that. But yeah,
Okay. Yeah. Because we spoke before we went on that you were originally from Boston.
that's right.
So
Yeah.
you have lived in some major US cities. So that's
Yeah,
a pretty big change to live in this small city in the
definitely.
bottom of the world. Yeah. So what is that like being in such a um well, I guess it's spread out, but small population wise city?
Yeah, I think in some ways I'm still I don't know, making up my mind about that and what
Yeah.
I think I really like that given that I grew up a lot around cities. My mom's from New York, from Queens,
Okay.
and so I spent a lot of times when I was younger in cities, and I love cities, but I also feel like I'm at a phase in life where I yeah, I also want a lot of ease and a lot of simplicity, even in,
Yeah.
and I like that Christchurch feels very, to me, it feels very easeful. It feels very manageable.
Yeah.
I don't really feel that hustle bustle city vibe in Christchurch.
Yeah.
Um, so I appreciate that there's a lot of things going on here that don't feel overwhelming. I think there's a lot of stuff for different kinds of people here. And I also, yeah, I like that even though they weren't positive things necessarily, I think it's really cool being in a city where the city's been through a couple of different crises,
Yeah.
and you can
Yeah.
feel that. And I think that brings a sense of like lineage with community here. Yeah.
Um, yeah, even though I went to school in Boston and lived there after,
Mm,
we lived in a small town in New Hampshire before we moved here, so my kids had only known small town living. They'd been to New York and Chicago and Boston for visits, but yeah, so here, like, this is like city living to them, which is
mm,
funny because for people who came from, like, a big city, it's like a big town, but for their perspective, they feel like a lot of the differences that people ask about living in New Zealand versus New Zealand versus USA, it really comes down to them. It's like city versus rural living,
yeah.
would be the biggest changes. Yeah.
Mm.
So when you did come here in 2018, did you come right to Christchurch or were you in other parts of New Zealand as well?
I was in the North Island, so I was kind of
Mhm.
yeah, quite rural for a while, and but one of the first people I met, Kiwis I met in the North Island, who's now a very dear friend, he grew up in Christchurch,
Okay.
so I feel like yeah, I've always had a bit of a connection to Christchurch starting through him,
Yeah.
and yeah, but Christchurch just been here 6 months.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So you have spent the majority of all this time up in the North Island, more rural.
that's right. Yeah, yeah, and
Okay.
I've been to Christchurch several times, and
Yeah.
I feel like I've kind of been slowly cultivating a bit of a relationship with it over the last years. But yeah, this is now the first kind of being anchored
Okay.
here time in Christchurch. Yeah.
Okay. I was just walking, with an American friend of mine who's lived here about 6 years, 5 or 6, the same time as me, and because I just came back from home, um, I feel like Christchurch is a club that I can't get into. Um, yeah, it's like
That's
and
interesting,
it's
yeah.
not representative of New Zealand because other people have different experiences, and I'm married to a Christchurch native, so, like, I should have, like, you know, a ticket in or something, but,
Mm.
yeah, so I don't know. Sometimes I feel like Christchurch is like it's a unique ecosystem in New Zealand where, people here have been connected for a long time. And so all of, not all, but 98% of my friends are also immigrants.
Wow,
Or
right. Yeah.
not Christchurch people. Yeah. Anyway, we'll see how you've been here 6 months, so maybe it's not long enough, but um, yeah, it will be interesting to see how your experience goes. But if you already know people here,
Mm.
that's helpful.
Yeah, but I do get what you're saying. I have my sense of what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so a lot of people who are interested in moving here are very curious in like visa pathways. I have had a professional immigration lawyer on to talk about that because, I'm not a professional, but just out of curiosity,
Mm.
what visa pathway what did you do?
I did a partnership visa at the time.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and found that pretty, yeah, for the most part, it was a pretty smooth ride.
So your
Yeah.
partner's a Kiwi.
We're not together anymore, but
Yeah.
that partner at the time
Yeah.
was Kiwi. Is Kiwi, yeah.
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 Because some partnership visas are like there's an American who's here on a student visa, but then his partner got to come on a partnership visa through his student visa. So
Right.
you're just I'm straight up partner with a Kiwi, and that's what you came on to. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
Um, yeah, that was pretty straightforward to me as well. Um, although it was hard because when I finally like went for I think it was like going for residency, I was here, and when we moved here, everything was just in his name, and so I was, like, having a really
Right.
hard job, like, "I've been with the guy for 18 years," like, and it was really hard to prove the current relationship because nothing
Mhm.
here was joined. Back in America, everything was, like, had both of our names and, like, everything
Yeah.
here did, and so it was actually I struggled proving it, and, it didn't matter about the children like, every life that we had built up until then, they only cared about the last 18 months, which I
Right,
really
wow.
struggled to prove, because I didn't get
Yeah.
made here, like, my name wasn't on anything, I didn't have, um, like, all these things here established. Yeah, anyway,
Right, yeah, well.
we got through it. Now I'm here. Um, okay, so when you came here, had you been planning to, or was it kind of just like, "Oh, I have a partner that lives there," or, like, had been a work in progress, or was it kinda spontaneous?
It was a bit spontaneous. Yeah, we didn't meet until I shortly after I arrived, but
Yeah,
yeah, it was mainly to come to this training,
yeah,
that I kind of knew I wanted to go to. I definitely being in a phase where I was traveling a lot around the world. I knew somewhere in me that I wanted to get to New Zealand eventually, but I think,
okay,
I didn't think it was gonna be that soon. So I'd say it was a bit spontaneous, but sort of in the kind of the nomadic place I was in, the timing just
yeah.
felt right. Yeah.
Did there just from research that you had done or just things that you've heard,
Yeah.
what really surprised you about New Zealand that you weren't prepared for or aware of?
That's a great question. I think in some ways that the answer to that question has kind of kept changing every year as well, you
Okay.
know?
Yeah,
I think that hmm, a couple things come to mind. I think these are still with me today just as they were a few years ago. One
okay.
is I was really surprised by, even though there's kind of industries and, whatever, marketing and things here, I was really amazed by, um just kind of how, I don't wanna say, like, behind the
Yeah,
culture is just, but I feel there's, like, parts that I both love and hate about the culture that seem like they're, because it's such a new culture, they haven't really caught up to the rest of other maybe Western cultures, and
yeah,
I kind of love that. Like, one of the things that surprised me was just how little, how there's not many giant freeways and billboards and advertising. I love that.
Here.
I feel like driving around the States and then coming here, I could like breathe while driving on the roads, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think I was also surprised how it does, as well as Christchurch, it does feel like a very white country a lot of the
Mhm.
time.
Yeah.
And and I think there are elements about that I was kind of shocked by.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's a whole other side conversation probably, but I think there's elements of the diversity here that I think are often, yeah, I miss that sometimes about living in Boston, San
Yeah.
Francisco.
Mhm.
Yeah, it feels very white sometimes, and that surprised me.
Well, I've had listeners request, for me to interview Black Americans and their experience here, and
Yeah.
so, I have well, one was from the UK, and then, I had someone from the US too, and they get to speak about that experience, and so, I think when they moved here too, they were surprised. They're like, "There's not many of us around." Yeah, especially in
Yeah,
Christchurch, and
definitely.
so, and then I had spoken to another one that definitely experienced more racism here than they had been used to living in California, and that
Yeah,
was a
yeah,
surprise to them. Um,
yeah.
yeah, and
Mm,
I have witness and experience racism in the workplaces and in places around here too that surprised me because I'm like, oh, they're so my I thought like they're so progressive and like there's so many things that I thought about New Zealand and so and sometimes it's like language and words they use but I don't think they're aware that
mm.
they shouldn't be using that language.
Yeah.
um
Yeah, some of
some of
those
it's I think
cultural dynamics are very interesting, totally, because I
yeah
think in some ways, yeah, there are elements of the kind of human relational stuff that where I'm like, wow, this just feels like the way community or salt of the earth living
yeah
should be. And then there's elements where I'm like, wow, the level of, yeah, I think ingrained racism,
yeah
conservatism, like real, not to say you can't find this in the States as well, but I do think there's a certain, I'm generalizing a bit, but I do think there's a certain archetype of like the kind of very masculine Kiwi bloke that
yeah
can just be very, yeah, kind of living in an ancient time of
yeah
sexism and racism. And you can find that anywhere.
yeah
But
of
I
course
think that things that would so not fly in very progressive cities of the States still
oh
really
right.
just happen here all the time, you know?
Yeah, agree. And, actually, you don't do you have kids?
No, no.
Okay. So, we have kids in the school here, and, there's an all-boys public school here. I mean, there's lots
Yeah.
of all-boys and all-girls schools and stuff, but I'm not just for not I won't use the private one as an example, but, like, an all-boys public school, the boys that are the younger ones, like year 9, 10, they have to wear shorts all year round. And they're not allowed to wear pants until they're, like, like a senior because they have to toughen up. You have to wear your shorts,
Wow.
like, to school. So, that's now, 2026, like, you wear
That's
your shorts, like
wild. God.
I got back from America the other day, and the next day was, like, -3 degrees, and, this boy's riding his bike to school in his shorts. It was, like, from that school, that public school, and I was like,
Wow.
"Oh, yeah, toughen up." And then my friend's daughter goes to the all public girls' high school here, and they're getting emails and from the dean because she colored her hair an
Mm,
unnatural color, even though it's red, it wasn't like a natural red, and they're not allowed to have they can't wear nail polish, earrings, have unnatural hair color, and obviously they all wear uniforms, and it's such conformity.
yeah,
And
wow.
there's there's definitely I was really anti-uniforms because of the conformity part. I'm like, "Express yourself." But then when it comes to I have 2 girls, like, I mean, they wake up and they throw on the same thing every day, so I think there's an ease and no stress about that, and then it
Mm,
puts everyone on the same playing like, mm, the wealth co you know what? They say that it makes it so people don't know your wealth, but please, it comes out in other ways. There's no hiding that. Like, it's their backpacks, their shoe what not I don't know, shoes or uniform, but there's plenty of things where that's pretty evident. But,
yeah.
yeah, the
Mm,
the strictness about that can still be surprising to an American,
yeah.
um, in
Definitely.
a
Yeah.
public
We're
school.
if anything, we could. the crazy expression of America could use a little containment and group, Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And
Mm,
like even like the girls have to wear the girl uniform and the boys have to wear the boy uniform. And there might be some bending on that in some of the um co-ed schools and stuff, but for the
mm,
girls' school, mm-mm. If
yeah,
like
wow.
they if you come here, you have to be a girl. Like, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like there's like some strictness in that. And so
Yeah,
that's a really interesting I just don't know how that would fly in America, stuff like that. Yeah.
yeah,
Um
yeah, yeah. I think there are elements to, yeah, what you're saying that kind of like the things that are just really clearly, um, yeah, global topics
yeah,
around race, around gender identity, around
yeah,
like all of these things. I get that every country and every city is going to have their own cultural norms, and but I
yeah,
think that yeah, I think that's a piece that's really fascinating with this country is in some ways I feel because of its size, it's really amazing progressive things have and can and will come out. And then there's other
yeah.
things that just feel so archaic and yeah, even the whole tall poppy syndrome thing, which
Yeah,
I think it's curious how every culture will kind of have its stereotypes, but then there's also some truth to it.
yeah,
And so I feel, yeah, that I guess that's up to each person's interpretation, but I've definitely found that there is truth to that embedded in the culture. I think that even though there can be maybe competition or kind of stuff that comes up in American culture,
yeah.
there is such a celebration of people's individual expression and being
Mhm.
emotional and speaking your mind. And I do feel I've experienced that a lot here where, and plenty of people that break that stereotype, but then also a lot of places embedded in the culture where it's like you expressed a little too much or you're a little too emotional. And there's a sense of like, no, no, we don't do that here. So
Yeah.
I find that a bit, yeah, I guess that's why it's good we're here to some degree.
I've even had feedback in interviews that I am, like, over the top, um, like, ch friendly, honest,
Mm,
authentic, yeah,
yeah.
and I guess unfiltered maybe a little bit, but not unfiltered in a rude way. Um, yeah, well, yeah, I've had advice from recruiters to dim myself a bit.
Mm,
Yeah, and my husband, who's the Kiwi, he's like, "Do not dim your light. Do not do that. Like, that's silly."
yeah.
But
Definitely not.
that has definitely been advice for me to go in. I'm like, I don't know, maybe I should take I don't know, whatever medicine, like, makes you like, zone out or something because, something that would, like, be a downer for me because I'm just like, "Hi, like, so
Yeah.
happy to be here," and that's just, like, too much for a lot of Kiwis, um, and this is funny, I've talked about this on the podcast before, and when I was just home in America, this joke comes up all the time. When I met my husband here in New Zealand 20 or 21 years ago, I studied abroad here, for just, like, 1 semester. But when he met me this is before, social media and the internet and stuff blew up, and they were just watching what was on live TV back then, and New Zealand was behind, like, we didn't even they had cell phones, but you couldn't even, like, call on them because they were, like, $5 a minute or something. So, I mean, they were way behind at that point. But, he used the word exotic to explain me, a blonde, white American, and it was really funny because his previous relationship was with a Maori woman for you so,
Wow,
like,
right.
to call me that, but to him, it was exotic to what he was used to,
Mhm.
and it was more about my personality because I was, like, blunt and, um, he confident, he said, and, like, just said what was just, like, confident and just, like, had this energy that was exotic to what he was used to growing up here. And so
Yeah.
he kinda chose the wrong word. Like, for us Americans, that's funny, but, like, so maybe the word choice is wrong, but he's explained it to people many times, and he's like, "She just, like, came, like, showed up, like, and, not a lot of humility,
Mm.
just, 'Hello.'" Yeah. So it was kind of funny. And so, um,
Yeah, I love that. That's great.
it's definitely different. So do you think that there is an equivalent or close to equivalent tall poppy in America? Like we just call it something else?
Yeah, I think that I don't even know what that saying would be. It feels like it's almost the opposite of the tall poppy syndrome, where I feel here it's almost make sure you don't become the tallest poppy. But in
Yeah.
America, I feel everyone either subtly or not so subtly is just conditioned to be the tallest
Yeah.
poppy all the and
Yeah.
but I think yeah, I think that God, I don't yeah. It's yeah. I
Because I was thinking about that phrase, like keeping up with the Joneses or whatever. And
That's a good one. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's kind of like trying to achieve what your neighbors and friends have,
Yeah.
but
I
you're not.
think
Yeah, I don't know.
I think that yeah, I almost feel that there's a even though you can get some of that here, I think that and I mean I think this is such a global thing and we're seeing this
Yeah, yeah,
collectively
yeah.
now,
Yeah.
but I think that there's such an obsession with like progress and innovation in the States.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of ties to the keeping up with the Joneses thing of just like, okay, we're gonna get our new tiled kitchen and our new blender and our cuisine art, fucking whatever,
Yeah.
and it's like endless. It's endless. And I think on the flip side here, I appreciate yeah, even though that kind of addiction to modernity and progression can still happen, I also love seeing yeah, it's kind of houses and levels of progressiveness that come
Yeah.
from building things away that that you would never see people do in so many places in the States. So but I think it's kind of I guess I see both here. I see the sense of a real homegrown sense of community that's just like, no, we're never going to catch up to this modern culture bullshit.
Yeah.
But then I also see the opposite of where, yeah, where America just has such an influence over places like this. And
Yeah.
so I think I see both happening here. And I also see both happening back in the States. I feel there's so many amazing cities and pockets of community back in the States that are just like, yeah, we're going to go back to kind of our roots and not adapt to this modern bullshit basically. And other places that are just like, cool, keep expanding, expanding, expanding.
Yeah. Yeah. It is kind of exciting. You've been here 6 months, but I've been here almost 5 years, and there's been a lot of growth in Christchurch. I mean,
Yeah.
every time I go home and come back, I feel like there's more people on the road, even,
Yeah.
like, in another time, but also, like, Tapai opened right when I got here, which was a convention center, so they could start hosting these, like, conferences and stuff again, and now the stadium, and then,
Yeah.
um, the sports center, which my daughter plays netball at, and the new Court Theater, like, so many things have popped up since I've been here, which
Mm.
is quite cool to see because I was here pre-earthquake for the first time, and then I
Yeah.
came back soon after the earthquake, so I saw a lot of the destruction
Wow.
and stuff like that, and so now to kinda see it rebuild, um, and attract a lot more people, it's pretty cool, like, it just feels like a very alive city right now, which is
Yeah.
kind of cool.
I feel that too. That sense of aliveness.
Yeah.
And I think yeah, I remember first coming here and feeling that at least instantly on the surface, it doesn't have that kind of aesthetic beauty initially that say Wellington does, or
Yeah.
personally, I think just who I am, I love yeah, the feeling of Wellington or Dunedin
Oh,
is
okay.
just my vibe
Yeah.
so much. But I had the sense coming here initially, and I've continued to have that sense that like, wow, there's a lot happening under the surface here. And I think I just heard somewhat recently that it's also the startup capital in New Zealand at the moment. And I do feel that
Yeah.
sense of aliveness you're speaking of, and kind of it being a creative vortex. I feel that with Christchurch more than I do any other city in New Zealand, actually.
Okay, that's cool because I've, like, passed through Wellington, but have not spent a significant amount of time there, and
Yeah.
so it's interesting to speak to a lot of younger people I speak to really love Wellington as well, and they
Yeah.
say it feels like a lot more progressive. I've been to a few comedian shows here, and they say when they go to Wellington, they're more nervous because, they said they can't be as, like, raunchy and unedited in Wellington as they can here, so I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, that's kinda funny." Um,
I felt that
but
with Wellington. There's a weird, yeah, it's strange because I feel there's some cities like Wellington where I feel like, and this is just my opinion, but on the surface, I feel like, oh, it's hip, it's cool, it's artsy. But actually, I found Wellington to be very flat and conservative a lot of the time.
Oh,
I mean, I
okay.
do think, and I do think Christchurch has, yeah, there's a need, and I think many cities can still have that level of, you
Yeah,
know, let's not talk about that or conservatism in some way. But I feel there's just so many, yeah, I feel there's almost so many different kinds of, I don't know, people and communities that I sense starting to happen in Christchurch.
yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah,
I know that you had reached out in the Americans in Christchurch group looking for, like, some like-minded people to discuss with.
yeah.
Has that gone into fruition, or how
It
is that?
has. Yeah, it's great. We've formed a little WhatsApp group. We're having a gathering tomorrow night of kind of
Oh,
a small group of people who just want to, yeah, who just want to be a bit more expressive, share our, political, emotional selves a bit more, and see,
yeah.
yeah, just connect. And it's been great. I mean, really hearing some of the stories of why people moved here and has been quite touching. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, because this isn't a political podcast by nature,
mm,
but when I ask people, "Why did you move here?"
yeah,
Obviously, they're free to share, and that often is a big reason is to have safer communities and, escape the chaos of what's going on in
totally. Yeah,
America. And, and I think that's not why I moved here. I moved here because my husband wanted to come home,
mm,
to be closer to his family and his aging father and stuff like that. But I have noticed, my kids taking a public bus and stuff, like, I don't have fear about that. I'm not worried about it. I
yeah,
mean, I don't know, I, like, make jokes. I'm like, "Oh, well, I guess you won't get trafficked here." These are, like, things like, if we were going to Boston or, like, we had gone to Key West and stuff, and, like, I remember my daughter walked off, like, "No, get back here. You have to, like, you can't go too far from me." And
yeah,
here, it's just like, "Yeah, okay, see you in a few hours." Like, I'm a lot more, um
mm,
at ease with with both of them having independence,
yeah,
in many ways, and so and then actually when I was just home and my friends were talking about, like, these fears of fentanyl and, like, they're lacing weed with fentanyl. I'm like, "What? You have to worry about your kid being fentanyl is not even a blip in our radar here." Or
yeah,
hopefully
yeah,
not.
yeah, totally, totally,
Yeah.
yeah,
Um, Although my Kiwi brother-in-law, he's a Kiwi, but he lives in America and he went from, like, stoner to cop,
mm,
many years ago. Yeah. He was, like, a snowboarder stoner, and now he's, like, a chief of police, but
wow,
a lot of his work is focused on drugs and stuff like that, and so he goes to a lot of seminars and stuff, and he's like, "Oh, no, the drugs are coming to New Zealand. They're coming. You guys need to be ready." I'm like, "Oh,
mm,
well, okay. Well, that's not good." But yeah,
mm,
at this point, it's not something that I have to really be concerned with, which is also, like, a freeing feeling. Um,
yeah, definitely,
Something else when I was just home that my friends were talking about with their teenagers, and I was like, "Oh, I don't have to worry about that." And it wasn't gun violence, it wasn't that one that's, like, an obvious thing. Um, I can't remember what it was, but I clocked it. I was like, "Oh, I don't have to think about that, um,
right,
in New Zealand." Yeah, that
yeah,
kind of thing. But,
yeah, yeah. I think
yeah.
I think it's easy to take some of that for granted. I kind of forget that, and yeah, I think it would be different if I had kids. But yeah, it's funny being here, and you kind of just forget the feeling of just being really safe in the place. I mean, I think because my mom being from New York and growing up in different cities, and I just had friends from like all walks of life,
Yeah.
but nonetheless, yeah, I do remember being whether it's Chicago or Boston at times, and there's just something in my mind that's like someone could have a gun in this auditorium right now, or so,
Yeah.
and that's sometimes I felt like I was being over dramatic, but at the same time, it's like, well, this is a reality in the States. It's happening all the time, and I mean, the level of safety here, I think I do take for granted sometimes. I forget how lucky and really much of a gift it is to be in a space where you don't really need to think about that much.
Yeah. Um, do you have friends and family that visit you here? Does anyone ever come visit?
My parents and my brother are coming in November actually for the first time.
Very nice.
So that
Nice.
feels exciting. But I do feel the distance. Yeah, I do feel the reality of being way down at the edge of the earth.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think I'm just in my own process in the moment of life of like I do want to go back to the States more often. I care about what's happening there. I do miss my family.
Yeah.
And I think it's just gonna probably be more realistic if I find ways to get back there more often than hoping they'll come here more.
Yeah. The friend I was just walking with, she was saying, like, none of her friends have visited, and they have the means to as well.
Mm,
And, um, yeah, I was like, "Yeah, we have friends that will, like, fly to Europe all the time, but, like, this is too far," you know?
yeah,
And
definitely.
yeah,
It does.
and,
Yeah.
I think there's just, like, a fear and an unknown about how far I don't know. I actually go home a lot,
Mm,
um often funded by friends and family to because I don't we make the New Zealand peso here when I'm actually if and when I'm working, it's not a lot, and then yeah, and so I'm really fortunate that the
mm.
people would rather pay for me to go home than them to come here. It's like both sides.
Yeah, that's
But
amazing. Yeah.
um, but anyway, like, so I'm so used to the flight and stuff, and my kids are, but yeah, people are just I think they also think they have to come for a long time to make it worth it. But
Mm,
I had one friend, and she's not wealthy, but she came for 5 days,
yeah.
um,
Well.
and we squeezed a lot in, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm glad I came." And then I had a cousin come, and she came for 5 days. So it's like it's really funny that I've had, like, these 2 really short visitors, um, and yeah, I don't know. It's interesting the different reasons people give for not coming, but that can I don't know. But yeah, sometimes I just feel like we're really isolated over here.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I feel similar. I kind of like the flight. I don't mind the long flight. To me, it's
Yeah.
kind of more fun being on a longer flight. But
I
you're right.
yeah.
I think that there is something, I don't know, in people's brains that somehow like 18 hours feels too intense compared to 10 or 11. I don't know what it
Yeah.
is, but yeah.
Yeah. Funny. Have you been to Australia, like, living here? Have you gone over there?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, my partner's half Australian, half Israeli.
Okay.
So, yeah, so we were just there visiting some of her family a few months ago, and yeah, I do feel what you're saying that too, that there's I think besides the geography of family visiting or not, there is
Yeah.
yeah, there's a funny mix in me of being both happy to be so far away from it all, and then at times being
Yeah.
like, oh, I miss just being able to take a quick flight over to Boston or California or something. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, yeah, we have an off-grid place in Akaroa.
Oh, cool. Great
Yeah,
spot.
and my husband spends, like, almost every weekend there, like, living
Nice.
his isolated dream. This is,
Yeah.
like, what's funny is I'm clearly, like, a very social person, and
Mm,
so he could just go live off the rest of his days over his off-grid isolated place,
yeah.
but yeah, sometimes when we're it's like I mean, even though it's only 90 minutes out of Christchurch, when we are there, it does feel like we're in, like, a different world, and when I've had
Totally.
visitors come, they kind of, like, get there and look around, and they're like, "Are we on Earth still?" Like, it's just almost like it's, like, so it feels so remote, and then they're like, "We are in the middle of the ocean on this tiny island," and now, like yeah, and so I'm like, it's nice to hear that perspective because we just get used to it. We've been here, and so it's interesting. Oh,
Yeah.
is your partner Jewish?
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's not a big Jewish community here.
We
I
both are. We
find.
both are. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, well,
Yeah.
that's something because like at home, there's a lot of Jewish people, and
Yeah.
I rarely meet Jewish people here, and
Right.
you don't hear people talking about Jewish holidays and when Hanukkah
No.
comes, like, and my kids go to well, the primary school has 54 different nations represented. So there's kids
Wow.
from 54 nations, and
Wow,
that
that's
doesn't
amazing.
mean, like, born in New Zealand, but
Mm.
is Chinese or something. It means, like,
Yeah.
kids who have come from 54 nations, yeah. And, and my daughter was like, "But there's no Jewish kids." And I was
Wow.
like,
Yeah.
"Really?" Yeah. So I was like, why are there not very why is there not, like, a Jewish population here?"
Yeah,
Maybe 'cause
interesting.
it's so far
Yeah.
away, I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree. Yeah, I don't
Do
necessarily
you practice? Like, do you
no, no, I mean, I think for me, and I don't wanna say I think for her as well, similar upbringings of, like, being yeah, being a big part culturally to some degree of our lives, but I don't, um yeah, I haven't really been practiced or connected to it for a long
okay,
time, but
yeah,
so maybe if I was, I would notice more of that in the city, but I don't yeah, I agree, though, I don't necessarily have memories of, like, bumping into a bunch of Jewish people here or
yeah,
nearby, you know? Yeah.
yeah. Um, yeah, I think that because I think when we look at, like, within their schools, diversity in race and religion, like,
Mm.
like, they could have 5 friends over and everyone's a different religion here and, like, have different, dietary,
Wow.
all yeah, and so, like, that where we came from in a very homogenous
Yeah.
area of New Hampshire, it was, like, Christian and Jewish, like, I
Yeah.
don't maybe some Jehovah Witnesses or something like that, but very
Mm.
there like, we were not there was not as many religions as we're encountering here, and then,
Mm.
some of the friends the Christianity is, like, really extreme from,
Yeah.
like, from, not just Catholic or something or Baptist or Protestant, but, like, I don't know what it is, but, like, very intense,
Mm. Yeah,
and so,
definitely.
these are just different discussions I hear when I'm driving kids or, there's friends over, and those discussions among the kids happen so freely and openly,
Mm.
and I do find like, no one's like, "Oh, we can't talk about that," or, "Oh, we can't say that." They just talk kind of freely about their own beliefs and are all kind of, like, accepting of it. I don't know, I do often think, I'm like, "I wonder how this discussion would go if they were, like, in America."
Yeah. That gives
Yeah,
me so much that makes me so happy to hear that, though. I feel yeah, just to know that there's that much diversity in the school where that's amazing. I'm
they're
quite
not all like that. That's why when Americans move here
yeah,
and they post in that group,
right.
um sorry, my dog was making noise. When they posted the group about, like, where's the best place to live, where should we live, where should our kids go to school, I said, "Are you looking for diversity
Yeah.
or, like" because those posher communities, the higher priced real estate, they're not diverse.
Yeah.
Um, and that's where a lot of Americans tend to go, like the Kashmir, the Maryville, the Pendleton,
Yeah.
um, and those schools are very white.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so yeah, so I know. I'm like, "Well, I put my money where my mouth is." My kids are going to, like, the most diverse schools. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I love that,
although
it's great.
although I didn't really choose it, we just already own this house here.
Mm.
Like, this is what I walked into.
Yeah.
For many
Win-win.
yeah. But still, it did provide them with something so much more than just like, "Oh, we moved to New Zealand and they got the New Zealand culture,"
Mm.
and the Māori culture. Like, yes, they have that, but then they've actually gotten a lot more global culture than I
Mm.
ever knew was gonna happen.
Yeah,
Um,
wow, it's amazing, yeah.
so that was kind of like a unexpected like, if someone asked me, like, "What's a big surprise that happened about moving here?" That was, like, I did not know my kids were gonna get so much more exposure to all those other cultures, and then
Mm.
I feel like that helps them be, like, more, what's that word? Like, accepting and understanding and curious and, um, whatever, all this, I don't know.
Yeah,
I hopefully it makes them good global citizens and
definitely. Yeah, I find that so I just feel so much joy hearing that, it makes me so inspired to know that they're yeah,
yeah.
this at least one of that this school exists, at least amongst others, yeah.
Yeah. Um, okay. I this is like so silly, but we often like wrap up we talk about food in New Zealand
Yeah.
because every culture has its foods and stuff. And so what is like your favorite New Zealand food? And
Mm.
what do you miss from home?
That's a good one. Yeah. Well, I mean, I would just say I love the meat here. I think that
Yeah.
getting wild venison or going to the local butcher, yeah,
I love
yeah,
going to a local butcher.
me too.
Like,
I think that's my
yeah,
favorite. I would say just getting like a really some combination of being able to just eat very simply, of going to the local markets,
yeah,
getting meat, and just having like a classic steak, potatoes. I didn't grow up. I grew up with a bit of meat, but then I stopped eating meat for a while. And when I came back here, I'm just so happy that I've started. I just love the red meat here so much.
yeah.
And I think I do miss sometimes, even though there's good spots around, like I really miss good Mexican food from the States.
That is pretty
Uh,
consistent. That is pretty
yeah,
consistent with what we say, yeah.
yeah,
Um, yeah, it was so the butchers, like, the shops that were, like, solely butchers in the US where I lived anyway, were really expensive, like, they're way more expensive than a regular store,
yeah,
but
yeah.
then here I find that the local butchers well, there is an organic butcher I go to sometimes, in Buckingham,
Oh,
and
yeah, great
that's
place.
yeah, that's more exp I wouldn't say that's cheaper, but, like, my local butcher that's really close I could walk to, that's much cheaper than a grocery store. So
Mm,
I think, like, generally, like, the non-organic butchers are cheaper than a grocery store,
yeah,
um, and just, like, I love that experience of going in and it's, like, all out, and then, like, I have a conversation and we talk about it, and then maybe he gives me something for my dog or yeah, like, I like
definitely.
that
Yeah.
whole experience. So I owned a health food store back in the US,
Mm.
and so I brought in all meat from local farmers, like, within our state,
Cool.
you know?
Wow.
And so, um, we were always eating really local, mostly grass-fed, but it's New Hampshire, so they can't eat grass all year round, that's just
Mm,
when you live in a winter state like that, they have to turn to well, it becomes hay, which is still, I guess, dry grass and stuff, but,
mm,
but here they get to eat grass all year round. They always have
yep.
green grass. And of course, like then we like got raw milk from a local raw milk dairy farm and
Nice.
I
No, it's the
sold the
best.
raw milk and like the raw yogurt and like all of that stuff. So we were able to curate like some really local dairy and meat. But I know if like you went to a grocery store, you're getting shit dairy. And so here, if you compare like grocery store dairy to like America grocery store dairy, like, it's so much better here.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah. That's so noticeable. And I do love that. Yeah. I love that there's a lot less of crazy bazillion choices to choose from in the grocery store. And you just kind
Yeah,
of know you're getting pretty decent stuff. Yeah. I love that.
yeah. If someone which a lot of our listeners, some are just curious, but, like, a lot are interested in moving here. So if you were
Yeah.
to give a piece of advice, what would you give to someone considering the move
Mm.
to Aotearoa? Really bad at saying it.
Yeah. I would say, I would say that to maybe spend more time than if you can, I think it's worth because there's not that many if you are wanting to come to a city, I think
Yeah,
because there's really not that many cities in New Zealand, I just think it's really worth spending more time than maybe you would think you would traveling around and getting to know each city.
yeah.
I think it's a slow burn getting to know this country and these cities, you know? So I think giving yourself some space to really get to know different parts of the country and different cities, I'd say that would be my thing. Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything
Cool.
else that you wanna add for listeners to know about outside of that?
Yeah, I think I would just say I've appreciated being so far away from home and realizing that so many of the big global questions I still think are so important to stay just close to locally, you know? So
Mm.
it's been beautiful to like feel this grief that I have of kind of missing the States sometimes, but at the same time talking to friends back in the States who are like, we got to get out of here. And so I think I'm just appreciating that no matter how far you go or that I've been from home, I think there are always two sides to the coin, you know? And
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think,
Like, you feel like sometimes you're here and you're like, "Oh, I miss home," but then
yeah.
you on the same at the same time, you're feeling gratitude for being here, not having to face all of those things, like, head on every day.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
a
I
lot
think
of yeah.
totally. I think there's some part that wants to be there at times facing it head on, but then I'm also, I don't know if I was there all the time, maybe I would just be one of the many people who are like, "Oh my God, if I could get out of here, I would, given what's
Yeah.
happening." So yeah, I really appreciate that we're lucky enough to have the perspective of living down here. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I mentioned this in, like, a comment to you, but, um I know, like, I'm not, like, as tuned in to a lot of that stuff, like, I'm
Mm,
pretty tuned out to a lot
yeah.
of stuff that's happening there, although I will tell you exactly what's going on in my local school board in my
Mm,
town, and I'm following all that stuff because I was so heavily invested and involved and part of it that I'm like, I help, like, as part of these good things, and I wanna make sure these good things stay, um, and so I'll, like, still be up
mm,
like, listening to meetings on there, but then and maybe my state too, like a little bit paying attention. But once it goes beyond my state, I'm like, no, turned off, like not paying attention.
yeah.
Um, and and my friend I walked with, she's still very much like every day, like every news hit, she's like seeing everything, like constantly alerts of like all the shitty stuff happening.
Mm,
And I am like, am I being a bad person, like burying my head or something? Or am I protecting my peace and my mental health? And
yeah.
so, like because I was like, I don't have anxiety, I don't have depression, I sleep really well. Like,
Mm,
you know, I'm out in nature, and so there's definitely like 2 perspectives there of, you could look at what I'm doing as like 2 sides of things, like protecting my mental health, but then also,
mm,
um, closing my eyes to some stuff. But then also, like, I think, like, the small stuff, the small town and local stuff, you really can play a hand in, like, you can
yeah.
really help
Totally.
shape that, and I've, like, done it, like, I've, like, watched that happen, but the global stuff and maybe bigger state stuff is so out of my control, and I don't like t I really like to see, like, if I'm involved in an organization or I'm volunteering, I like to see progress, I like
Mm,
to see better like, I wanna see, that, something happening, something good happening from my efforts. So with the
yeah.
global stuff, I'm like, "Well, I can't do anything about that." So,
Yeah.
mm, yeah,
Yeah. No, I think there's something particularly about being in this country that, yeah, I've been around and seen a lot of evidence around how that progress locally can happen. And I
yeah,
think, and I find that really inspiring. I am often someone who goes very big picture because I think that's how I am creatively. But actually, I'm the same. I'm not tuning in that much with what's happening in the States. But I care. But I also feel like when that passion or whatever inspiration comes in, I also want to be able to just apply that locally and look out the front door and be like, what's happening here and now that I do
yeah,
that I can have some control over. So yeah, I
yeah.
love that. Yeah.
But then it's funny because my husband on the flip is like preparing for the end and,
Mm,
like, will be showing me like, I'm about to fall asleep, he's like, "Oh, and, this is gonna bl" I don't know, all the bad things you can possibly say, and I'm like, "B I don't" all the sites he's following and stuff, I'm like, "I don't need that in my ear right now." Um, I'm like, "You just monitor that over there quietly, okay? Like, let me know when I'm, like, need to take an action." Like, I'm an action-focused person, so it's like, I don't need that consuming my brain unless you think I need to take a very specific action. Um, and like this is really like I was trying to get into a dermatologist here, and like you just can't unless you're like dying with melanoma. Like you cannot get in with like low risk spots and stuff. Um, and then I was a couple weeks ago, I'm like, "You know what? I'm just gonna cut this out myself." And I did, and it's fine, and I've, like, wound cared it and stuff. And then, like, the next thing you know, I'm buying a suture kit from Amazon when I'm home. This was, like, a few years ago. Like, during COVID here too, like, my friend waited for, like, 6 hours to get stitches, so I'm like, "Well, I'm gonna buy a suture kit then." So, and
yeah.
learn how to do that. And then, and, like, yeah, I have, like, every natural medicine. Like, I don't know, like, I'm, like, ready in some ways for I don't know what I'm preparing for, but,
Mm,
I think when, like, COVID too, because I was here at the end of that, like, it did feel there was, like, nervousness in that
mm,
of, like, needing to be self-sufficient and
yeah,
do things like, I don't know, be able to take care of my family and stuff, and so, I don't
yeah,
know. Like, I don't what is that? Like, I don't fear it, but I wanna, like, be a little bit ready for something, whatever that something
yeah,
is, you know?
totally, yeah. I mean,
That
we are living in wild. I think we all know we're living it through a pretty crazy time on the planet right now, you know? So
yeah.
I think, yeah, I totally get that. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, but then he'll say, like, being in New Zealand is the safest place to be for
Mm,
whatever, whatever's happening globally. Um, I mean, there's a reason billionaires are buying houses here and stuff like that, you know.
mm,
Um, it does feel safer than many other places.
yeah, totally.
That's for sure.
Yeah,
Except when those earthquakes hit, I'm like, oh no, I don't want to
yeah,
live with that. Um,
yeah,
Because I worked in emergency management here, and New Zealand is, like, the 2nd riskiest country in the world for natural disasters, and then there was just a lot of statistics because we're trying to get companies to, like, invest in, like, emergency preparedness and everything, so then, basically, my whole 6 months was, like, drowning in scary statistics about all the bad stuff that can happen from natural disasters,
right.
and so, yeah, so now I'm a real treat at a dinner party now when we're talking about that stuff. But I'm prepared. Yeah, kind of, sort
Mm,
of. So
yeah,
anyway. Okay, Jonathan, I'm gonna stop recording and thank you for joining us
yeah,
on
so good to be
Into
here.
New Zealand. 'Kay. My family and I just got back from visiting home as in New Hampshire, and then we spent a couple days camping in Maine at Hermit Island and an overnight in Boston. So, another thing we do when we go home besides seeing family and friends and all our favorite spots is we do some shopping and get a lot of stuff that we just can't get in New Zealand. And a lot of it's just cheaper because New Hampshire is a tax-free state where everything in New Zealand is 15%. All goods and services have a 15% GST tax. Anyway, I needed new bras and I wanted to get something that was wireless. And I found this bra called Vibrant Body Company. And this is great. It has a patented a wire-free bra that's actually support you. It has a real lift, a real shaping, and real structure, and without any metal digging into you. And they use a teardrop cup technology, which gives you the support from the shape of the cup itself, not just the underwire. Um, Also, something else that I really care about is that the fabrics are certified clean and non harmful chemicals and substances that sit on your skin all day because, your skin is your biggest organ. They're comfortable, they're supportive, and they're clean fabrics, and they look good too. So if you would like to try one or talk to me about it, let me know. But if you go to vibrantbodycompany.com and use my code AshleyNZ, then you get 20% off your order. So it's ASHLEYNZ, or as the New Zealand people say, NZ. Z is Z here. So yeah, try it out and let me know what you think. I think it's a great product and I'm really enjoying it.